I'm Alan Johnson, KU2Y, and this is the CubeSatSim STEM Payload board assembly video. So I have the STEM Payload circuit board here, and I'm following along the wiki instructions. And for reference here, I have the bill of materials step-by-step parts list, just so I can identify the parts and also make sure that I'm getting them all and check them off as I go along. So you can build this board with either the SparkFun Pro Micro or the STM32 Blue Pill. So I would recommend building it with the SparkFun Pro Micro. It's easier to use. You don't have to flash a bootloader on it, for instance. And dealing with the Arduino IDE is a little simpler, but you can use the STM32. When we're building the board, the only difference is that for the Pro Micro we put the connectors here, so that we can plug the Pro Micro in. If we wanted to do the STM32, we would use the other two rows. You can also put them both in. And that way you can switch between the two if you want to. But we're just going to build those. Now it's important when these are soldered in that they're straight. Otherwise, when you put the pins on the Pro Micro or the STM32, they won't plug in. So one thing you can do is you can use these are the actual male headers for the STM32. So in a minute we're going to solder them on there like that. But for now we can use them to get the spacing right between these two. So I'm just going to clip them on here. So that keeps them at the right distance and pretty much square. So let's go ahead and do that. All of the parts on this board will mount on the front, with the exception of the stacking header, which we will mount on the back. Okay, just get set up here. All right. So yeah, you can see up here, this is where the GPIO connector is going to go, but all the other parts are going to mount on the front, and we will solder them on the back. So I'm going to start here, and I'm just going to solder one pin of each header, just to get it started, and to have a look and make sure that everything looks good. Make sure that they're inserted all the way. There's no gaps. Make sure they're at right angles. That all looks good. So having done that, we can now solder go ahead and go through and solder the remaining pins. Okay. Just check the pins here. Looks good. Okay. So we've got the female sockets here soldered in. So now we want to solder these pin headers onto the Pro Micro. And again, we want to make sure these are straight and at right angles. So one thing we can do is we can actually plug these in and then insert this. So you see we've just got it the way it will be when it's plugged in. And so now we'll go ahead and solder those pins, and that way everything should plug in correctly. Oops. Okay, let's have a look at those. Looks good. And if we just wait a minute for that to cool off, we can then unplug it. Do it carefully here so we don't bend anything. There we go. So now they are on there, and we can leave that off for the rest of the assembly. Okay. So next step is to do the diodes. There are 3 diodes, and again we need to pay attention to the polarity. And these diodes are all going to be mounted vertically. So I'm going to bend all 3 of them. Okay, that one didn't bend so well. Okay, so let's have a look. D1, D2, and D3, and this arrow points up, so that means that the band, silver band, needs to go towards up, so that means I put it in like this. And D2 and D3, the arrow points down, so that means I want the band to be down. Okay, we got all three of them. And I'm just going to bend the pins here to get a little bit of strength there. Okay. So I'm just going to do one pin on each for the minute, just so I can be sure that they are mounted correctly. One last chance to double check the polarity. Pointing up, pointing down, pointing down. Yep, looks good. So now I can finish them off here. Okay, and we'll just clip the ends off. Okay. So we've done the diodes, and now we want to do the 4.7K resistors. So it's going to be these two here with their yellow, violet, red bands. Now note these are quarter watt resistors, so they're a little bigger. That's just because I couldn't get the 1/8 or the 1/10 watt ones, which are smaller. But you can always go a size or two bigger. So these are going to be also mounting vertically. So let's bend them over. Okay. And these are R1 and R2. So here is R2. Here is R1. Okay. And let's have a look. Pretty good. Okay. So now it's time to install the green LED. So with LEDs, we need to pay attention to the polarity. The longer lead is the plus, and on the circuit board there, it shows the plus as on the inside. Green one is LED 1, so it's this bottom one here. So I'm going to insert it like this. And also, if you look or feel carefully, the lens has a flat side, and the flat side is actually up against the edge of the board there. All right, and I'm also going to put in the LED for that R3, which is a 220 ohm resistor. So that's yellow, red, brown. And this is a 1/8 watt one, which is the right size. Bend him over. And install him as R3. Make sure the LED is flat. Looks good. Okay. So now we can do LED 2 and R4. So this is our blue LED, the longer of the two leads here. It's going to go there. And then R4 is 100 ohms. So that's brown, black, brown. Okay, looks good. LED is flat, straight. So is the resistor. Okay. All right, so now it's time to install the two sensors. We'll start with the purple one. This is the BME 280. This is a pressure, temperature, humidity sensor that can also estimate altitude, and it comes with its own little pin header here. So going to put it in place here. And do need to make sure that it is put in the right way. This way is the wrong way. This way is the right way, you can tell because it's got the pins labeled on it. piece of my putty here to hold it in place. Look at that. Looks good. So I'm going to solder the top here to attach the sensor board to the pin header. Look, yeah, it looks pretty good. And now I can flip it over and solder pin header to the circuit board. Okay. So that was the BME 280. Now we'll do the MPU 6050, which is the gyro. So it's this blue sensor board, again with its own pin header. Oh, it's interesting, one of the pinholes here is blocked. Oh, did I blob some solder on there? Maybe I did. Okay, I just need to heat that up as I push it through. It's a start. And one more. Here we go. Okay, so the pin header there is through, and it's actually tacked by that one spot. Again, we need to make sure this is the right way up. This one, it's a little more obvious. There's no components on that side. There. Some putty to hold it in place. And now we can solder the top. Okay, looks good. Oops, fell out. Do one pin here, take a look at it. Yep, looks good. All right, so we've got the two sensors soldered on. Now it's time to add the 2x20 pin connector here. Now you can put a stacking header on here, but you'll have trouble fitting it into the CubeSat frame. So that's why we have a non-stacking, and we insert it here in the bottom of the PC board, and then we flip it over. And I'm just going to solder 2 pins on it. And then check it. Make sure we're straight. Pushed in all the way. Yep, looks good. Okay, so that's one side. Looks good. Very good. Okay, so this is the point in the assembly instructions where we would normally plug in the the Pro Micro and do some tests on it, but I'm going to keep on soldering here just to keep it all in one video. So we're next going to install three 10K resistors, R9, R10, and R11. So I'm going to bend them over here. So R9 is here, R10 here, and R11 is over here. Oh, actually I'm gonna flip R10 here, just so they're all lined up the same way. All right. Look. Yep, they all look good. Okay, so that's the three 10Ks. Now we're going to install the three capacitors, C1, C2, and C3. So let's see. C2 is here. C3 is here. And C1 is over here. And the pins to keep them in place. Okay. Yep, they all look good. Let's finish them off. Okay. So now down to our last component, D4. So D4 is this diode here. It's a 1N4148. It actually has that written on it. It also has a glass case as opposed to the black plastic case that the Schottky diodes have. So it's going to go here, D1. And again, it has a polarity. The band is on the right-hand side, so I'm going to bend it like this. And then install it here. It's sticking out a little bit, but it's okay. Okay, and so that completes our STEM payload board, and now we would just plug the Pro Micro in, and we'd be ready to do the testing.